Welcome to another weekly Forex forecast. We start as usual on the DXY on the weekly time frame. We had this very nice bullish low test candle the previous week, and we now have another bullish week. However, we still are in neutral territory. We are still sitting overall on this very significant low here to the left, and we were discussing actually this level here. We can see it clearer on the 4-hour time frame. This level here, which would give us more clarity. We said last week already, if we see price breaking above this level and then giving us some form of bullish continuation, we are in for the next run to the upside. However, we just tapped into this area, and from here price could also just start forming a middle section for a bigger bearish continuation in this area, and then we know we are in for the next move to the downside. So right now we are a bit more neutral with the positioning. Going to euro US dollar, we can see the same here on the weekly time frame. We had this very nice high test, bearish high test candle, and now we have a follow through, a slightly stronger candle than on the DXY. But going down to the 4-hour time frame, we can see we are still within the range. So what are we looking for? We were looking at these levels here last week already. Initially, we were hoping to see some form of a 3-touch structure here for a bearish continuation. Price sold off a bit early, but did not manage to break below this area here for a potential head and shoulder in this area here. So I'm looking now for more commitment. Ideally, we see the DXY breaking to the upside, which would then mean euro US dollar would continue to sell off, and if we then break below this area followed by a continuation, that would be ideal, and we have way more commitment. The head and shoulder would be confirmed, break of the neckline, and we can enter a short. Going on to Australian dollar, US dollar on the weekly time frame, we had this pair on and off the watch list for a couple of weeks now. And the higher time frame, the big picture, we were still discussing this one potential 1, 2, 3. So there is more room to the downside. However, we can see we are clearly in a more bullish momentum run, and there is a small area of interest here to the left, but not a very strong one. What are we looking for right now? Going down to the 4-hour time frame, there is actually we can clearly see that we had a nice momentum run, and here now price is stalling and lost some momentum, and we are approaching this little bit smaller area of interest. It's not a very significant one, so that means actually we can see we are now in we ended with a bit more bearish price action. So I'm looking here for right now more for a short-term short trade. We have this 1, 2, 3. We have this very nice bearish bullish high test candle. Unfortunately, it's bullish, but we can see from the positioning here, it did not close above this previous small high. And if we get a follow through on the 1-hour time frame, we can see we have here the first potential continuation. I'm not interested to take anything here. I'm really looking for the second continuation, something like that on the 1-hour structure. I can filter to the 15-minute for a short-term short here, because I'm fully aware that this pattern can just evolve. So it's also possible that we will just see that this 1, 2, 3 structure is evolving, but that would still be enough room here for a short-term trade, just for price to form a second base before we then see a bigger 1, 2, 3 structure then clearing this gap here. Moving on to pound US dollar on the weekly time frame, we can see here very nice tweezer top on the weekly time frame. That's quite a strong price action reversal pattern. We ended now with a bearish high test candle, tapping this previous high here, and we are now looking for a follow through on the 4-hour time frame. What do we see here? It's actually even possible to go get a more weighted entry. So we still have this low here to the left. Actually, even this low could still be a turnaround area for a potential long. And if we see the DXY going higher up, then we can expect pound US dollar to sell sell off, and we are now looking for a continuation structure. I would entertain a short here in this area. So if we see price finishing this structure here, tapping into this liquidity point with the reversal pattern, I would entertain a short here because it gives me enough room to manage the trade from here to the first bigger inflection point. And then if we see a breakout below and followed by a continuation, and we are already in the trade, that might be a scale in. And if we just see price selling off early next week and followed by a bearish continuation, then we enter a bit further down, which is absolutely okay. We don't have to call the top and get into the first continuation. Moving on to New Zealand dollar, US dollar. On the weekly time frame, we can see we are coming here from a value area here to the left, but we still left a small gap to the next higher time frame value area. We are in a bullish momentum run. We are stalling a bit more here than on the Australian dollar US dollar, and we are definitely a bit more extended than Australian dollar US dollar. We are approaching a bit more significant area of interest here, and we had a nice bullish high test candle which did not get filled in the previous week, and we ended bearish. So what are we looking right now? We can see here actually we had kind of a failed bullish structure here. We had this liquidity point here to the left, and initially I was looking for this bull flag structure here to finish in this area to turn around. However, we did not get that. It's more like a running channel breakout, and we have here now a 1 2 3 into this lower time frame. Here you can see it clear on the 1 hour time frame. We have here a smaller liquidity area. We broke outside the structure, we broke back in quite impulsively, which then gave this nice washout candle on the 4 hour time frame, a follow-through candle, a bearish, and I'm now looking for a lower time frame bearish continuation here. That would be very nice if we get even on the 15-minute. Actually, it will still be a 1 hour structure, but if we get a deliberate 1 2 3 structure into this smaller liquidity area here inside the first structure, that would be visible on the 1 hour time frame and would be ready into late Asia session, maybe even early London session, and then we could enter a trade here. That's also a bit in this pair we have to consider the timing, the time session a bit as well too. We definitely don't want to trade New Zealand dollar US dollar on a 15-minute continuation during early Asia session. Sorry, we want to see a bit more deliberate price action first. Euro Australian dollar on the weekly time frame. We had this on watch last week because we said overall price is overextended. We still have some levels to the upside. We had here a small gap, but price was stalling here. We see we approached this level multiple times and failed to break through. However, last week we clearly broke out of this range and closed the week with a heavy body bearish weekly follow-through candle. So going down to the 1 hour time frame, what are we looking for right now? We are looking for a bearish continuation. We can see price was really correcting here in this area, tried multiple times to break through this level, and now finally broke through, and then first failed, and now we get some momentum. So I'm looking here for a bit the momentum run. I don't need too much confirmation here for the next move to the downside. I would like to see a clear 1 2 3 structure into the first liquidity area here. That would be enough deliberate price action for me to enter a short in this area. Euro New Zealand dollar on the weekly time frame, we had a bit more commitment the previous week already, because we see we have now the 4th bearish week in a row, and we had no gap here. We had we tapped into this higher time frame value area. However, we don't have such a clear breakout like we had now in Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar. We are still within this area here. We identified these two levels here as a bit more significant liquidity areas, because that was the start of this very strong impulsive move to the upside, and we can see we are still just trading around this area. However, we see quite nice price action patterns, and if we do some price action pattern separation, what are we looking for? We had this ascending channel here into this high. This is just the liquidity area. We had this 1, 2, 3, then basically a strong sell-off, a smaller version of it with the small retest, and now I'm looking for a lower time frame continuation into this smaller liquidity area here on the 15-minute. That would also be something, if we get deliberate price action during Asia session, that would then be ready in London session and would be okay to enter a trade, a short trade in this area, because it gives us enough room to manage the trade into the next inflection point. It's not an ideal sequence, because we are going here from a bigger correction, but this is actually part of this overall structure into a smaller one, and now we are looking for even a smaller one. But we can see that fairly often if price has this is kind of like a hover structure to this previous bigger structure, so that why it would make sense even sequence wise to enter a smaller continuation pattern in this situation. Pound Australian dollar on the weekly time frame, we had this high test, or this strong reversal candle. We are now definitely below back in structure, and we have quite a strong full body close here on the previous week. We are now looking for a continuation in this area. If I do some pattern separation here as well, we had similar like in the previous example, we have these two areas which are significant. That's the start of this strong impulsive move. Then we had here an expanding 1, 2, 3 structure which committed with this nice retest continuation structure, retesting this small high, like this small low, which could have been actually a bull flag, a failed bull flag. Then we have this V-shape recovering, retesting the back end, and then we now finally broke through this overall longer correction, and we are now looking for a bearish continuation, similar to the example before. This could be the start of a momentum run, so we are not looking for too much. A deliberate 1, 2, 3 structure, even retesting this previous low, the low of the bigger structure, would be ideal to then enter a short continuation. New Zealand dollar, Canadian dollar on the weekly time frame. These are the pairs are interesting this week in terms of pattern separation, but that's because of the positioning, also the positioning on the DXY, so a lot of them could go either way. We had this nice bullish momentum run tapping into this low here. We now have a bearish reversal week, not too strong because we ended on a week. Now on the 1 hour time frame, that's a very, very nice one actually, because we have here this overall a bit more corrective, more complex structure here. We have this liquidity area here to the left. We then had this expanding structure, and that looked definitely more to for a bearish continuation. I was actually looking for a trade here. We did not get that. Instead, price was tapping into the next higher liquidity area, but immediately turned around and broke back into this overall structure. And then now we can see here a potential continuation, and going even to the 15 minutes, what we can see here, we have a small liquidity area. And I would now, my first option, preferred option, would be a deliberate structure here, a 1, 2, 3 structure into this small liquidity area, and then I would entertain a sell in this area here. However, it could also be a continuation pattern at this point. Both options would absolutely make sense in terms of positioning and sequence. There is more than enough room to continue to the upside, especially after this 3 weeks bullish momentum. We still have the gap, so the long would make sense as well. And we also know that expanding structures in key areas can be reversal pattern as well as continuation patterns. So in this situation, both options would make sense. Therefore, we wait for clear price action confirmation. Australian dollar yen on the weekly time frame, we can see we are coming from an area of interest. We have now more or less 4 bullish weeks. We had like 1 neutral week in between, and now we get, it seems like we get some momentum. And here also on the weekly time frame, we can see that there is nothing really here. We are a bit in no man's land right now. Going down to the 4-hour time frame, we can see here we have this small liquidity area, and what we are looking for right now is for price to continue in this area. That this is a 4-hour structure, so I would look for going down to the 1-hour time frame. You can see we have here a small liquidity area, we have a gap. I would like to see price to finish the gap here into this liquidity area, and then I would entertain a 4-hour reversal. Preferably a 4-hour reversal, also because of the timing. And you can see initially on the 4-hour, it looked like price started to react on this liquidity area here, but then failed. We had basically 8 hours bearish price action, and then we had followed by 12 hours bullish price action. So from the positioning and the momentum we are in now, price starts to get a bit more bullish momentum. I would definitely entertain a long trade in this area. Canadian dollar yen on the weekly time frame, we are looking for trades in this pair for a while, for bullish trades actually, to finish this bigger expanding structure. Going down to the 4-hour time frame, and what are we looking for? We are looking for price to finish this bigger structure. We were looking for the previous weeks already for some continuation, and it looks like we are finishing the structure. And if ideally we get a long into a potential short, we have to keep in mind, if we get such a big, that's actually quite a big volume accumulation bullish continuation structure in this area, that would then be enough to move price potentially a bit higher. But looking here to the left, you can see we also have another liquidity area, an area of interest, which would still make sense, because these expanding structures, like for example here we have a lot or multiple potential starts for this bigger, basically the first touch. And so it could also be that that's why price action can be a bit subjective in these areas for these bigger structures. So you see, it would then make sense mathematically as well to have a 1, 2, 3, which would then align with this liquidity area for a potential sell-off. Yeah, that's my watch list for next week. Thanks for watching. See you next week. Bye bye.